Great. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Jessica Redland's million copy moment. It means a huge, huge amount that so many of you come this evening to celebrate such an amazing milestone for such a wonderful author. My name's Nia. I'm Jessica's editor. We've now done 21 books together, which is incredible. And I couldn't be more proud or privileged to publish her brilliant books and to reach this incredible milestone. So thank you all for joining us. You don't want to hear much from me this evening. I think you mostly want to hear from Jessica. So let me just make sure we've got everyone in. There's still a couple more people joining, and then we'll get going. But just to give everyone a bit of guidelines for how it's going to go this evening. So we're going to start off with some questions, which you've all very kindly sent in for Jessica. So we'll go through a few of those questions to start with. Then we're going to have a reading, an exclusive reading from Jessica's brand new release, The Start of Something Wonderful, which comes out next month, which I'm sure all of you already know. Then we'll have a really great quiz, which Jessica's going to run for us. And then we'll finish off with some more questions that you've sent in. Hoping to be finished by about 7:30. If anyone needs to leave in that time, that's absolutely fine. As I've already said, we're recording this session, so you can always catch up afterwards. You're all on mute at the moment. If you do want to say something or want to contribute, you can raise your hand on Zoom and then we'll come to you if you've got any questions or comments. And then finally, hopefully lots of you have received a beautiful Jessica Redland biscuit in celebration of this evening. Please take a photo of it, please share it on social media, and we'd love to see your photos. But thanks so much again for joining us this evening. Let me just unmute our star guest, Jessica Redland, so that she can say hi to you all.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming along. I was absolutely stunned when Claire, our marketing manager, shared with me the spreadsheet of how many people had RSVP'd. So what an honour to have so many of you here today celebrating a special milestone. So really looking forward to this evening. I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time, but hopefully I will spot various faces as we go through the evening. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, and to Nia and for Claire for organising it for me.
Pleasure. And there is also a chat function on the Zoom, I've just realised as well. So lots of people are already giving us nice comments, but please do leave your comments in the chat as well. Jessica will definitely see those as we go on through the evening. So why don't we kick off with some questions? Like I said, so many of you sent in some absolutely brilliant questions for this evening. So we've got lots of questions to get through. And I thought what would be a really good starting point would be to look at some questions about your career, Jessica, if that's all right with you. So the first question we got sent in was from Tracy. Thanks, Tracy, for your question. And she wants to know, what was your career before writing?
So before I became a full-time author, and I've been doing that for 3 years now, I worked mainly in HR, human resources, predominantly in recruitment, training, coaching, mentoring roles, training design, training delivery. And I had a very brief career break into retail when I opened and managed my own teddy bear shop. But yeah, mainly HR other than that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that teddy bear shop you all recognise in one of Jessica's books, I'm sure you've all read as well. Next question is from Emma Stokes. Apart from being a wonderful best-selling author, what is the best job you've ever had?
Thank you for the lovely comment, Emma. Oh, and I will just say, anyone who's listened to any Zooms I've done before or Facebook Lives knows that I'm all about the detail. But because we've got so many questions today, and some of them do cross over with each other, what I'm trying to do, big challenge for me, is give a succinct answer with these. So if I do give less than my usual, it's because we have so many questions. So my favourite job, apart from being an author, and being an author is my absolute favourite job, I'd love to say working in the teddy bear shop, but people can be really nasty to people in retail. If anybody works in retail or tourism or hospitality knows, and the general public can make or break you. And there were quite a few in my teddy bear shop who did break me. So I would say my best ever job was an HR one. I was a graduate recruitment and development manager. I can't even say the word, a graduate recruitment and development manager for a large water company in the south of England. And it was absolutely my dream job. I loved doing that, did that for about 2.5 years.
Brilliant. And a question from Nicola and also from Katie, both asked similar questions. Did you always want to be a writer, and did you write stories as a child?
Quite often when authors are interviewed, they say, I was always writing from being little. I was a big reader. I was a big, desire to be a writer. And I wasn't at all. It was really something that came much, much later in life for me. I used to write stories for English at school because I had to. That was my assignment. But although I was a big reader, I never, ever considered being a writer. So I'm one of the few who hasn't had this long-term childhood desire to do it.
So what did first inspire you to write? And this is a question from Kelly.
So in my favourite job as a graduate development, recruitment and development manager, I used to have to write quite a lot of reports on what we were doing with the job, how many people were applying, how many people we were interviewing, etc. And my manager used to say to me that he loved reading my reports because they actually read more like a story. And then he said, could you make them a little bit more businessy? And by the way, you should write a book. And I thought, I'd love to do that. The minute he'd said that, it had never entered my head. But as soon as he said that, I thought, yeah, I really, really want to do that. But I had no ideas as to what to write about. And then they say kind of write what you know, and something happened in my personal life that I thought, do you know what, that would make an amazing premise for a book. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it had mileage. And that story became New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms. If anybody's read that, that is based on a true life event for me personally.
Wow. Aren't we all just so lucky that your manager made that suggestion? I mean, that's incredible.
And it's weird because when I look back at my career, all the things I did in HR that I absolutely loved were, running assessment and development centres, but designing case studies and creating characters and stories as part of that. And I never connected it with being a writer. And yet I've been doing that pretty much all along with my career. And it was only when he said that I thought, yes, an author, I'd love to do that.
So how did you take the leap of faith, giving up your job to become an author? This is a question from Maureen.
So at first I didn't. For several years, there was no chance I could even consider that. I got my very first book published in 2015 with a company that took on my first what was the Welcome to Whitsley Bay series now. They took those on and they ceased trading after only about 18 months. So I got my rights back and became an indie author for a while, and really, really struggled at that, really struggled to get noticed, days and days of no sales. And so I was really questioning whether I could go anywhere with it. But then I saw an advert for this brand new company setting up called Boldwood Books. And I was there at midnight on the first day that they were up and running to send in my manuscript, wanting to be the first in the queue. And then I panicked later at 11 o'clock in the morning when I saw a comment on Twitter saying, we're now open for manuscripts. And I thought, what if the email wasn't activated at midnight? So I sent it again just to be sure, and was really fortunate enough to become one of the first 20 authors. And it was really only, my first book was a brand new title. It hadn't been released before, The Secret to Happiness. But then Boldwood had taken on my backlist as well, because I just had them as an indie author. I hadn't done much with them. And so in January, February and March 2020, we released the four of them, one of them mid-January, two of them mid-February, one of them mid-March. And at that point, things really started to take off, and made a decision that, I can hear myself echoing on somebody's, it's gone now. Made a decision that at that point, I wanted to be able to become a full-time author by the end of the year. And we did a little bit of financial jiggery pokery. We doubled our mortgage term to halve the payment so that if my income wasn't good enough, I still could do that. As it happens, a combination of my day job, I was an HR tutor at this point, we'd gone into a little lockdown. There was a bit of a furlough situation going on for a lot of the students who were doing the HR assignment that I marked. And I got so much work through that because people were at home, they weren't doing their job, people were enrolling to do the professional qualification in HR, that I then had enough savings that I could make that leap of faith. So on the 8th of June, 2020, I became a full-time author, and I've never looked back since. Best thing I ever did, but needed to get kind of a little bit financially stable before we could do that.
And I think that's you know, it's incredible that you're able to make that leap when so many authors obviously aren't able to do that. And I think that's a really good moment just to thank everyone here, because it is only because of these amazing readers who are here and these amazing supporters that allowed you to do that, and then allowed us to be here a million books later. So a big thank you from me for all of your support for Jessica's books, and I know from you as well, Jessica. It's really
yeah, so very grateful. And I think for me particularly, because I've had that kind of no income, no sales, really struggling for 4.5, 5 years. What a difference it's been since joining Boldwood. And I'm so grateful for the people who discovered my work. I really am. You know, I'll never ever take it for granted. If you didn't buy my books, my audios, borrow them from libraries, I wouldn't be able to continue writing them. Simple as that.
Amazing. Really lovely question here now from Helen. What has been the highlight of your career as an author so far?
Without a doubt, it's actually just joining Boldwood Books. I mean, achieving 1 million sales is absolutely phenomenal, a massive highlight. But if I hadn't joined Boldwood in the first place, it would never have happened. So everything that has happened over the past few years, I can just relate back to spotting that advert that day and thinking, this is my last chance. If I submit and it's a no, I might need to give up. And luckily the Boldwood gods were shining down on me and did like my manuscript and took me on. But yeah, joining Boldwood, best thing that's ever happened to me, absolute highlight for me.
And then one more question on your career. This one's from Fiona Jenkins. How does it feel to rise from the ashes and be the success you always knew you could be? I love this question, Fiona. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that question. Although at the end bit, you know, and be the success you knew you could be, I didn't think I could be this sort of success. I hoped I might do okay. And, you know, early indications when I was so struggling indie were that anybody who did find my books tended to like them, but I just didn't have that visibility out there. So this, you know, millions, gosh, 1,000 sales, 10,000 sales was something that I just dreamed of would be absolutely amazing. To get to 1 million, it kind of feels a bit like a dream. It's like it's happened to somebody else. So even though I've got the biscuit on my desk to say it, and I've got this beautiful glass plaque to say it, I still kind of, it's a pinch me moment, still can't quite believe it's happened. And you know, before we know it, we'll be on our way to the next 500,000. And yeah, it just didn't know it could be the success. It is completely unprecedented. But I'm glad I had those years of struggles, because it has made me so grateful for every moment that I get. And it makes me realise how hard it is to be an author. There are so many incredible authors out there who just struggle, and not because they're not talented, just there's a lot of luck, there's a lot of right place, right time, there's a lot of just hitting a moment with your manuscript. You can't write to a trend, because by the time you've written that book, the trend's gone. So it's just, yeah, capturing something at a right moment at a right time.
And then we've had quite a few questions from the audience about your inspiration and your research. I know everyone would love to hear a bit more about how you come to write these amazing stories. Many people have asked this question, so I thought I'd start with this one. And this is from Carly, from Becky, from Heather, Kirsty, Karen, and Tina. How do you come up with the ideas for your lovely books?
So I find inspiration is absolutely everywhere, and there's no one place that I get my inspiration from. So personal example was the story behind Seaside Blooms. So that was something that happened to me. The next 2 books in that series, so what are now Finding Hope at Lighthouse Cove and Coming Home to Seashell Cottage, they were very much about, once I started creating the character of Sarah in Seaside Blooms. For anyone who's not read that book, Sarah has refound a clairvoyant reading that was made when she was 18. She's now just turned 30. Every single thing on it has come true, except one thing. She's about to go back home, and when she does that, she'll meet the man of her dreams, and he'll be called Stephen. So she becomes a little bit obsessed with that. And because the clairvoyant reading is a little bit of an unusual thing, I wanted her to have a best friend who believed it and was all for it, and another friend who was completely cynical and thought it was the biggest load of rubbish she'd ever heard, and that they would clash with each other. But as I started creating those characters, Elise being the believer, Claire being the non-believer, they kind of told me that they had stories of their own, and I knew that I had a trilogy on my hands. So their stories then developed. And then Making Wishes at Bayview, which is the first book in that series, was actually started life as a prequel novella. The original publisher asked me if I could just write a short story that I could give away for free as a sample of my writing, linked to the series. I'm not good at doing short, so a short story became a 23,000 word novella, and we released that instead. But I felt after a while there was some more I could do with that. So I wrote another shorter novel, and then when I joined Boldwood, they became part of one book, a full-length novel. Secret to Happiness was triggered by a song lyric. If anybody's read that story, it's about 3 women who meet, who all need to say goodbye to someone or something in their lives, and it questions whether the power of a brand new friendship can help them do that. And if anybody's familiar with Leona Lewis, who she won the X Factor, I think, quite a lot of years ago now. And she has an album called Glass Heart, and there is a song on there called Unlove Me. I don't think it was a single, it's just an album track. And the chorus says, wish I could tell you goodbye, but I can't. And it's about somebody who wants the person she needs to let go of her first, because she can't do it. And that just triggered all this thought of me about, well, okay, who else might be in a relationship or doing something in their life where they need to let go, but they can't, and they need perhaps the other person to do that first. All You Need Is Love was, as Nia said earlier, inspired by running my own teddy bear shop, but also a relative of mine having a life-changing illness diagnosis, kind of pull those two together. Hedgehog Hollow, my auntie rescues hedgehogs, so I always wanted to set a story in a rescue centre, but I needed to do a master's assignment. I did a master's in creative writing, and the assignment was all about putting a couple of characters in an uncomfortable situation. And so the opening scenes of Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, where Samantha is bridesmaid for her cousin Chloe's wedding, but Chloe is marrying James, who is Samantha's ex-boyfriend and still the love of her life. Those two ideas came together. And for Starfish Cafe, I wanted to write a story that involved the RNLI, as I live by the coast, and I just wanted to be able to kind of cast a light on the amazing work that the staff and volunteers do there. So that's kind of a main series. I could go on and tell you the inspiration behind every single book, and it will be different. But for me, it's, it's anything. It's triggered by a story I'm writing. It's triggered by somewhere I see, a song lyric, and just a form of the character, anything. So many places to get inspiration from. And I just love kind of coming up with something new.
Oh, it's so fantastic. And I just wanted to share a really lovely comment that we've had in the group chat this evening from Stacey, who said, and I know that this is the experience of lots and lots of readers. She says, I found Christmas Wishes at the chocolate shop by accident and was so captivated it opened a whole new genre for me. I read the entire Castle Street series and Hedgehog Hollow series, and I'm going to start Welcome to Whitstable Bay, the series next. And I think just so many people I know that I've spoken to, that I know that you get messages from Jessica who say that they read one of your books and then it is just like box set binging, can't stop, have to read them all, which is just so lovely.
It's such a nice thing about the readers that I have, that they seem to, don't just read one book and I'm sure there are some who read one book and disappear and go, it's not for me, but so many read them. And I've even had a message from somebody who's actually just said that they're reading Hedgehog Hollow for the 3rd time now. And I know some have read them 3, 4 times, 5 times. You think, oh my goodness, you've probably actually read it more than I have. So yeah, I'm so flattered. That is so humbling to have people reading and reading again.
I'm just going to ask one more question before we go on to our reading. And this is a question from Megan. She says, there are so many story threads in your books that impact on people's everyday lives. Where do you start with your research? Because I've personally been brought to tears by some of the emotional ups and downs of some of your characters.
Oh, thank you. I do tend to write emotional stories, and I'm brought to tears as well. I'm often sat at my desk sobbing my eyes out. And of course, that's always the moment my husband or daughter decides to walk into the room and have this panic as to why I'm in floods of tears. And it's just a sad bit in my book. And so I hope that if it's touched me, it's going to touch a reader. So when it comes to the storylines, if I know somebody who has experienced that, I'll talk to them, I'll do some research. So when I was looking into Parkinson's for All You Need Is Love, my mum's next door neighbour, she has Parkinson's. I don't want to give too many spoilers away about some of the other plot points, but certainly something that's coming up in Christmas at the Cat Cafe. I have two friends who I interrogated, interviewed, and find out so much about how the issue that I'm covering affects them. I do lots and lots of research online. So particularly if I'm covering something like an illness, a condition, something somebody might have experienced, I will tend to try and find YouTube videos where they talk about it. So people who maybe have been on a journey and they're sharing what they've experienced, what they know, because then I'm getting it more realistically. And sometimes there is personal experience in there. So again, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but if anybody has read Christmas Miracles at Hedgehog Hollow, and Summer Nights at the Starfish Cafe, in the acknowledgements at the back of those, I talk about my personal experience of a couple of those storylines in there. So if I've had it, I will draw on that experience. But of course, you know, I've written 21 books now. I can't possibly have experienced everything that I explore in them. But, you know, there's imagination, there's research, and I love doing the research bit. And I'm good at not going too far down a rabbit hole, even though that can be very tempting.
I'm sure it can be very tempting. No, I think you do an amazing job on your research. And I think you do a really good job as well in your acknowledgements. You always give us a bit of reasoning behind, you know, the themes that you chose, the research that you did. And I always find that really, really interesting. I love this comment we've just had in from Mads, who says, I just love them all, but they cause me so much book grief afterwards. And I think that's such a good way of putting it. I think we all have book grief after reading some of your books, Jessica. So I'm going to take a pause on the questions for now. We'll come back to those a little bit later. Could you please, Jessica, give us a sneak peek and a reading from your brand new release, which I can't wait for everyone to read, which is called The Start of Something Wonderful and comes out in July.
Thank you, Nia. I don't have the paperback of this yet because we're still a few weeks away from it being there. So I can't imagine me holding up this beautiful cover. If you haven't seen the cover, do pop onto Amazon. I'm so in love with it. It just completely evokes the Lake District. So if you've read the blurb for The Start of Something Wonderful, you'll know that the story is about illustrator Autumn Lane, who has had a difficult time lately. And the outcome of that is that she has lost her creative sparkle. So she's really struggling to do any drawings. I'm going to read from chapter 11 in this book. And just to give you a bit of context as to where we are at this point, Autumn's been spending some time in London and in Paris, and she's now accepted an invitation from her pen pal, Rosie, to stay with her in the Lake District. She's never met Rosie. They've spoken on the phone, they've emailed, but mainly they have a writing each other letters relationship. And she's hoping that she'll rediscover her sparkle in the Lake District. Now, to avoid any spoilers and to ensure that the reading isn't too long, I have missed out some large chunks of this chapter. So once you read the book for real, if you do read the book for real, you'll find that in chapter 11, there are a lot of extra bits in there. But if I say them in here because we are a little way into the book, it will give away spoilers. So I've kept it all spoiler free, and just to bring you to the gorgeous Lake District. Wow, I exclaimed for the umpteenth time as I travelled along the A66 towards Keswick late on Friday afternoon. I'd seen photographs, but nothing quite prepared me for the majesty of the mountains and fells in the Lake District National Park, which rose on either side of the road. No wonder Rosie loved it here. Turn left at the next junction, my sat-nav instructed. I flicked on my indicator at the signpost for Willowdale, and butterflies took flight. Nearly there. I was so excited about finally meeting Rosie, but I was a little nervous too. I'd put my inability to maintain friendships down to circumstances. Me flitting between France and England at school, feeling like an outsider at college, and my university friends being scattered all over the country after graduation. But what if it was what I'd feared? And I was the problem? What if I was boring to be around or too intense? And that's why my friendships had quickly fallen apart. Or what if the friendship aspect was fine, but I wasn't inspired by the lakes? What would I do next? Feeling the nerves build, I wound down the window and let the fresh air kiss my cheeks. I needed to stop overthinking everything and make the most of where I was. What would be would be. As I entered the village, there were cottages on either side of the road. Some were whitewashed and others were made from slate. There weren't any vehicles behind me, so I slowed right down to get a better look. There was a pub called the Hardy Herdwick on the main road and a village hall set back down a side road just before it. More cottages flanked the main road, the signs outside indicating that many of them were holiday rentals. I slowed down even more, taking it all in. It was so quaint and pretty. A lone cyclist passed me in the opposite direction and gave me a curious look. So I accelerated, realizing I probably looked a bit odd crawling through the village with my head sticking out my car window. In 100 meters, veer to the right, the sat-nav told me. It looked like I was in the center of the village now. On the corner to my right was a village green with a beautiful giant willow tree, a bench and a post box. I wondered whether the village got its name from the tree or whether the tree had been planted because of the name. On the left was a narrower road, which passed a village shop on the corner, a gift shop and more pretty white and slate houses. Opposite the gift shop was another pub called the Lakeside Inn, and beyond that was the lake, Derwentwater. As I veered to the right, I slowed down to let a group of walkers cross the road in front of me. They smiled and waved their thanks. It was no bother, gave me an excuse to pause and admire the lake. The calm water shimmered in the late afternoon sunshine, and it was everything I'd imagined and so much more. Continuing my journey, I passed a cafe on my right called the White Willow, with wooden tables outside, most of which were occupied. I loved a coffee and a slice of cake, so I looked forward to visiting the White Willow soon. I drove past cottages on either side of the road and a marina on my left, giving me further tantalising glimpses of Derwentwater. There were more properties beyond the marina, mainly large detached houses surrounded by trees. The road curved gently to the left, the right, and left again, and as I went round that final bend, I saw a large cream sign, Willowdale Hall, Riding Stables and Equestrian Centre. You have reached your destination. I have indeed, I whispered, switching off the sat-nav with a smile. Grand wrought iron gates with an elaborate floral design on them opened inwards of a creek after I entered the 4-digit number Rosie had given me into the keypad. After I'd driven through, they closed behind me with a satisfying thunk. Gravel crunched beneath my tyres as I drove past a cottage which had probably been the gatehouse when the estate was first built. It looked empty now and in need of some TLC, with plants hanging from the guttering and paint peeling off the window frames. Some way ahead of me, I could see Willowdale Hall itself, a beautiful mansion in grey slate with sandy-coloured stone window frames and features. Rosie had told me to turn left and follow the road past the stables, where I'd find Horseshoe Cottage. Moments later, I spotted and paused to take it in. The pretty one-storey cottage was built from slate, crawling with green and red ivy and surrounded by trees. I pulled onto the drive and parked round the back beside an old green Land Rover Jeep. Exiting my car, I heard a dog barking and a beautiful reddish-gold Cocker Spaniel came bounding over to me. You must be Toffee, I said, bending down to let her sniff my hand. Oh, you're even more beautiful in real life than in your photos. She gave me a lick, then dropped onto her back, legs in the air, so I could rub her belly. And you're just as demanding as Rosie said you were. Autumn, you're here. I stood up and smiled widely as Rosie rushed over, arms outstretched, and pulled me into a hug. It's amazing to finally meet you, I said, holding her tight. And you. I've been so excited all week. I can't believe it's taken us 24 years to meet. Half an hour later, I stood at the edge of Derwentwater, marvelling at the beauty all around me as Rosie pointed out various landmarks and Toffee splashed in the shallows, sending ripples across the calm lake. The estate has seen better days, Rosie said, as we wandered along overgrown pathways. It's in a prime position and there's so much more that could be done to make money to invest back into the upkeep, but his lordship isn't interested. All he cares about is the horses and drinking. She sighed heavily. The stables do well, but they don't generate enough income to support the rest of the estate. We arrived at Willowdale Hall. Seeing it close up and from a different angle to when I had arrived, I could see how impressive it was, but I could also see that a lot of work was needed to bring it back up to scratch. We're fortunate that the building's sound, the roof's good, and there aren't any damp issues, or no obvious ones, but it needs some preventative maintenance, and his lordship won't do it. She shook her head. I need to stop calling him that. There aren't any titles in the family, and if there had been, they'd have been on his late wife Catherine's side. It's man's fault. He stomps around the place, barking orders like he's landed gentry, and we're servants he can boss about. So she started calling him his lordship, and it's stuck. There'll be a day when I'm not concentrating, and I'll call him it to his face. He doesn't sound very nice. His bark's worse than his bite. I feel sorry for him. Imagine living there, all on your own. Did you say he has a son? Yeah, Oliver, but we never see him. Oliver and Hubert, his lordship, never got on. Catherine was the peacemaker, and after she died, they were at each other's throats constantly. Oliver finished college, left home to train as a doctor, and never returned. Although that's not necessarily a bad thing, as I don't have much time for Oliver Cranley. Remember I wrote to you once about the school bullies? He was in their gang. Then I don't have time for him either, I said. Sounds like an idiot. I looked up at Willowdale Hall. It's a really beautiful house. It is. Can you imagine Beatrix Potter being here on her holidays? I'd love to show you the bedroom she stayed in, but I don't think there's much chance of that, even if I catch his lordship in fine fettle. He's really reclusive, and nobody gets invited into the house these days. It's a shame. I'd have loved to see inside, and particularly see where Beatrix Potter had stayed, but there was no point in Rosie ruffling any feathers with her boss. We continued our walk with Toffee, while Rosie told me more about the history of the estate and the Cranley family. Certain bits sounded familiar from her earlier letters, but it was still all fascinating. I'd have been impressed with the place anyway, but to know that I was walking where my heroine had walked filled me with awe. How could I fail to find inspiration in the same place as Beatrix Potter? So will Autumn's holiday in the Lake District, a place so loved by Beatrix Potter, help ignite her creativity? Well, you'll just have to read the start of Something Wonderful to find out.
Oh, that was really, really lovely. Thank you so much for that, Jessica. I think everyone should give a round of applause. You're always so brilliant at narrating. We're getting lots and lots of comments. Everyone's saying how beautifully you narrate, and everyone loves listening to you. So thank you so much for doing that. I absolutely love this book, and I can't wait for everyone here to have a read and tell us what they think. And I hope you'll love it as much as we do, because it's obviously a brand new setting, which is really exciting. And I can see from the comments that few of our readers here are based in the Lake District, so that's lovely. Hopefully, you'll recognise many of the spots. But no, it's a really, really gorgeous book, and can't wait for it to come out next week. So the next section is going to be our Million Moment quiz. So I'm just going to share my screen and then hand over to Jessica, who's going to take the reins on the quiz and lead us through it.
So while Nia's doing that, if you've got your pen and paper handy, you don't have to take part. Obviously, this is fun and it's optional. However, there is a prize. So my Million Moment Zoom quiz. If we can just flip onto the next slide, Nia, and we'll show the little prize. So we're giving away, for the winner of this, a prize bundle which represents each of my series. You will get a signed hardback copy. Oh, and the hardbacks are beautiful. A signed hardback copy of The Start of Something Wonderful. And you will then get a little A6 notepad, a seaside keyring, a hedgehog eye mask, a Lucy Pittaway hedgehog bookmark, bumblebee coaster, and providing you were in the UK, a locally handmade starfish lavender hanger. If you are overseas and you win this, there's all sorts of kind of controls about sending things like that overseas. So I won't be able to include that in the package, but so this is open to you all. So let's crack on then. If you would like to number your paper down from 1 to 15, or you can do it as we go, but there are 15 questions. They are all multiple choice. Some of them, the information is widely available out there, and I will have talked about it quite a bit. Some of them are just completely random questions, but because they're multiple choice, we thought we'd have a bit of fun with them. It's giving you a few kind of exciting facts. So let's crack on with question 1 then. How long did it take me to write my debut novel? And so if you write down A, B, or C for your answer for each of the questions, so A would be 1 year, B would be 5 years, C would be 10 years. So how long did it take me to write my debut novel? A, 1 year, B, 5 years, C, 10 years.
I feel like the pressure's on for me in this quiz, Jessica, I'll be honest.
Nia and Claire had a go at it, didn't you, before when I sent it through? Scored pretty well, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, we did pretty well.
So question 2 then. How old was I when my first book was published? So not by Boldwood. And if you were listening, I actually gave the year that that was published earlier. Was I A, 40, B, 43, or C, 45? So how old was I when my first book was published? So that was New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms in its original format. A, 40, B, 43, C, 45. Question 3. Boldwood reissued 8 of my books. How many of those 8 were given a new title? Do you think it was A, all of them, B, 7 of them, C, 6 of them? So that's Boldwood reissued 8 of my books. And how many of them were given a new title? A, all of them, B, 7 of them, C, 6 of them. Question 4. I'm going through these quick because it's simply just writing A, B, or C down. But if you do need us to say any, can you just pop it in the chat if you need us to go back to any? Question 4. How many books have I had published so far by Boldwood Books? And again, we mentioned how many we've worked on together right at the beginning, but not all of them have been published yet. So at this point in June 2023, how many have been published so far? A, 15, B, 19, or C, 24? How many books have I had published by Boldwood so far? A, 15, B, 19, C, 24. Question 5. How many of my books so far are set in or just outside Whitsborough Bay? And that is the beautiful Scarborough, aka Scarbados, aka Whitsborough Bay, on a photo there for you. So is that A, 8, B, 10, or C, 12?
We just had a question in, Jessica, from Tracy, just to clarify, does that include republishing?
It includes everything that Boldwood have published. So everything that everything I originally wrote got republished by Boldwood. So we ignore the original versions. We're just focusing on everything that's to do with Boldwood. So how many of my Boldwood releases? So that would include something that came up, but we won't include that in the numbers. So for example, New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms originally came out of Searching for Stephen. You'd include New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms. You wouldn't include Searching for Stephen. Yep. So how many of my books so far released through Boldwood are set in or just outside Whitsborough Bay? And I've deliberately put that second part in, not saying why, but if you know, you know. So A8, B10, C12. Question 6. How many rejections did I receive before signing my first publishing deal? Was it A, 17, B, 23, or C, 27? That's how many rejections did I receive before signing my first publishing deal. So that's with the company that went bust. Was it A, 17, B, 23, C, 27? Question 7. Right, this is a lovely, lovely random one. One of the questions that we've been asked is about how I keep track of things, do I have a little black book? I have the most enormous spreadsheet. We'll probably still address that question because there's a bit more to it than that. And I decided that for a bit of fun, I would add up how many names I have used across all of my books so far. So how many, and again, just from Bold, we're not duplicating anything that came out before. So across my Boulder books that have been released, how many named characters appear? Is it A, 539? Is it B, 871? Or C, 1117? That's how many named characters appear across my books. A, 539, B, 871, C, 1117. Question 8. How many Castle Street businesses are settings for my stories? A, 4, B, 5, C, 6. And just to add some clarity on this, if, for example, a business is mentioned, but it's not where the main character is based, that's not part of the answer. So, for example, in a particular book, Yorkshire's Best appears, but the main character doesn't own Yorkshire's Best, so that wouldn't be included. So how many Castle Street businesses are settings, main settings for my stories? A4, B5, C6. Question 9. How many named hedgehogs appear across the Hedgehog Hollow series? And I will emphasize this as Hedgehog Hollow only. Hedgehog Hollow is mentioned, and there are some named hedgehogs in Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn, but we're not looking for those. So just make a guess of how many named hedgehogs or hoglets appear across the Hedgehog Hollow series. Is it A, 92, B, 102, or C, 122? Can't believe I came up with this many hedgehog names. I know, I was shocked when I looked at it. So how many named hedgehogs or hoglets even, appear across my Hedgehog Hollow series? 92, A, B, 102, or C, 122? Question 10. This took me some adding up. Rounded to the nearest 5,000, how many words do you think I have written across all of my books? Again, emphasize only published by Boldwood so far. Is it 1,255,000, B, 1,555,000, C, 1,855,000? That is a lot of words out of my head, that. So rounded up to the nearest 5,000, how many words have I written across all of my Boldwood books? A, 1,255,000, B, 1,555,000, C, 1,855,000. Question 11. Oh, look at that seal, so cute. How many named seals appear in the Starfish Cafe series? Is it A4, B6, C10? It's not nearly as many as hedgehogs. How many named seals appear in the Starfish Cafe series? So across all the 3 books, A4, B6, C10. That seal colony there, my husband took that. That's in the place at the coast called Ravenscar, which gave me the inspiration for Starfish Point, where the seals are. It's down a very, very steep cliff.
That is an incredible photo that your husband took.
Isn't it just? He went down to take them, but as he was coming down the cliff, the seals were starting to move away, so he stayed really far back and got a long lens on. So it's amazing that he was able to capture that one. And you think there's just rocks in the background, but when you look, you see the flippers and they're all seals behind it.
Amazing.
Question 12. My longest book is A Wedding at Hedgehog Hollow. Rounded to the nearest 100, how many words are in this book? Is it A, 110,000, B, 113,000, C, 116,000? That's A Wedding at Hedgehog Hollow is my longest book. round it to the nearest 100, how many words are in that book? A, 110,000, B, 113,000, C, 116,000. And whilst we're on that subject, currently in branches of the works, so if you are out and about, do have a look in the works, even if you've got it already. I love to see shelfies. So that's basically a picture of you out and about, taking a photo of my book, any of the Boldwood books in a branch of the works, and just tagging us in on social media and telling us which branch they are. It's lovely to see them out in the wild. Question 13. How many chapters do you think there are across all my Boldwood published books? Are there A, 952, B, 1002, C, 1052? So adding together all of my Boldwood books that have been released so far, how many chapters are there? A, 952, B, 1002, C, 1052. Question 14. Penultimate question. Which of my books currently has the most reviews on Amazon UK? Is it A, Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, B, The Secret to Happiness, or C, Snowflakes Over the Starfish Cafe? So which of my books currently has the most reviews on Amazon UK? Is it A, Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, B, The Secret to Happiness, or C, Snowflakes Over the Starfish Cafe? And final question. How many books have Boldwood contracted me to write across 3 contracts that have been signed? So I'm on my, I've signed my 3rd contract. I'm still on my 2nd one, but I've signed my 3rd one. How many books have Boldwood contracted me to write? Is it A, 30, B, 35, or C, 40? That's how many books have I been contracted to write by Boldwood? A, 30, B, 35, C, 40. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the questions. Some of those you might have known. Most of those probably completely random guesses. So it'll be just, as I said, a bit of fun, bit of luck being in the right place to see whether you have got them right. So we are trusting you to mark these accurately yourself. So we're going to go through the answers now, and if you can basically give yourself a point for each you get correct. So let's go on to the next slide. So how long did it take me to write my debut book? You have a point if you put C, 10 years. I've got slightly quicker at writing since then. I write now 4 novels a year, but it took me 10 years to write my debut book, as a lot of things happened during that time. I got married, had a baby, moved house 3-4 times, closed my business, changed jobs several times. Life kind of got in the way, and I learned my craft. So C, 1 point. Question 2. How old was I when my first book was published? I was 43. So if you put B, you get 1 point. And that was in May 2015. That was when the novella came out. In June 2015 was when my first novel came out, but my birthday's the 1st of May, so they both fell when I was 43. So that gives my age away. I'm 44 now, obviously. So 1 mark for B. Question 3. Which of my Boldwood books got new titles? 7 of them did. 7 out of the 8 of them. So if you got answer B, you get 1 point. Christmas at Carly's Cupcakes was the only one that didn't have a title change. Question 4. How many books have I had published so far? The answer is B, 19. So 1 point if you got B. Book 20 is out in July. Book 21, I have finished writing, and that is my September release. But B, 19 out. Question 5. How many books are set in Whitbread Bay or just outside? So that therefore includes the Starfish Cafe series. That is 12 books in total set in Whitbread Bay or just outside. So if you put C, you get 1 point for question 5. Question 6. How many rejections did I get? The answer is B, 23. So 23 rejections from a mixture of agents and publishers before I signed with the previous publisher. So B, 1 mark. Question 7, also B. 871 named characters appear across my books. There is some duplication in names. I cannot think of 871 different names, but my main characters do have different names. Thank goodness for spreadsheets, is what I say.
That is incredible. We won't make you name them all, Jessica.
No, my goodness, no. Don't. How many Castle Street businesses are main settings for my stories? That's 5. So if you put B, you get 1 mark. That is Seaside Blooms, Bear With Me, Carly's Cupcakes, Charlie's Chocolates, and The Chocolate Pot. Question 9. How many named hedgehogs? There are 92 named hedgehogs. So if you put A down for your question 9 answer, you get 1 point. Question 10. How many words? Oh my gosh, nearly 2 million. So if you put C down, there are 1,855,000 words across my 19 books released so far. So C for question 10 gets you 1 point.
A lot of words.
I know, isn't it? My head's exploding thinking about it. And we laugh every time because I always say, oh, this is going to be a slightly shorter book. And I seem to have this magic. It nearly always comes in at about 105 to 112,000 words. And we try to bat it back under 100, don't we? And just so much to tell you. Question 11, named seals. There are 6 named seals. That's Tank, Stripe, Chaplin, Alice, Lewis, and Speckles. Obviously, I couldn't name all the hedgehogs or all the named characters, but I can manage 6 seals. So if you put B, you get 1 point for question 11.
Alice will always be my favourite seal. If anyone else has a favourite seal, let us know, but Alice is mine.
She's lovely, bless her. So she appears in the second book, Springtides, at the Starfish Cafe. Question 12. Hedgehog Hollow, Wedding at Hedgehog Hollow is 110,000 words. So if you put A for question 12, you get 1 point. Question 13, there are a whopping 1,002 chapters. So if you put B as question 13's answer, across all of my books, I've written 1,002 chapters. So 1 point for that. Question 14. It was at one point Finding Love at Hedgehog Hollow, but for quite a while now, Snowflakes Over the Starfish Cafe, with over 7,000 reviews, is the most reviewed book on Amazon UK. So if you put C for question 14, you get 1 point. And the final question, how many books have Boldwood contacted me for? A whopping 40 books. So C gets you 1 point for question 15. So I started off with a 9-book contract for 4 brand new books and 5 backlist. We then added in 3 more backlists to take my entirety of my backlist. I then signed another 12-book contract. And earlier this year, at the point that I was celebrating my million sales, I signed another 16-book contract. So a whopping pile more books to come. So considering that in July, it's book 20 that's coming out. So if you like my books, I hope you keep buying them, because there's another 20 coming your way after that one. And that is the end. So how did you get on? Tot up your answers and let's see how people did. So what I'm going to do is say, did anybody get 15 out of 15? So can you pop in some capitals or something into the chat, or wave your arm about if anybody got 15. Anybody get 14? Anybody get 13?
We've got a wave from Heather. Got a wave from Heather.
At 13, oh, I see a 13. Yes, I'm scrolling down the chat. So Heather got 13. Anybody else get 13 or more than 13? This is your time to shout up. Fantastic.
I'll be honest.
So Heather, that is super, super impressive. Some very amazing lucky guessing there. So whether anybody got like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to that, brilliant. And as I said, just a bit of fun, but congratulations, Heather. You have won that little bundle. Heather, if you could just pop your surname, if you don't mind, just into the chat so that we know who it is. and then we can make contact with you to get hold of an address for me to send the bundle. So Heather Close, thank you. Heather, can you just let us know whether you RSVP'd or whether you just joined today? Because obviously if you've RSVP'd, we'll have your email address, won't we, Claire? But if you've just joined today, RSVP.
Yeah, what I'll do is actually I'll just pop you in the email, Heather, or a note now, just so you can send me your address, so we'll get it all sorted. But congratulations, that's amazing. I got nearly 13, but not quite there. Not quite there.
Really 13, 8, or is it 12?
I'm not going to say anything, Jessica. I'm not going to say anything. It's a brilliant quiz, but yeah, well done, Heather. So I'll be in touch.
Congratulations. And I say, just a bit of fun. Can you imagine how long I've been sat here with a calculator? I was writing down all of my books, how many chapters, how many words everyone's had. It took me a while to put this quiz together. My head was exploding, but it was really interesting for me to discover how many words I've written, how many chapters were in my books, and yeah. So there you go. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. That was really, really fun. And yeah, good work, Heather. That's a really impressive score. So
I'm super impressed with 13. Even with guessing, that is amazing how that's landed.
Yeah. When you get your prize, please do take a photo. We'd love to see you with it. Congratulations. So we're just going to finish off now. We've got about half an hour left. We're going to go through some more questions, if that's all right with you, Jessica. And finish off with an extra special surprise at the end of our time here. So please stay with us, and in about half an hour we'll have a really exclusive, exciting thing to show you, which I won't say any more about.
Yeah, before you.
So at the beginning we talked a bit about your career, we talked a bit about your inspiration. I think leading on from the brilliant quiz, I thought it'd be nice if we talked about some of your characters, because everyone here loves your characters so much. So why don't we start off with a question that we had from Heather, from Suzanne, and from Janine. How do you come up with the characters in your books?
Again, a bit like where my inspiration comes from. It's a variety of things. In the main, the characters find me. You'll often hear writers talk about how their characters speak to them, and that doesn't mean we've gone a little bit gaga and we've got voices in our heads, although actually it does sometimes feel like that, because they can be very demanding and want certain things doing. So very often my characters will find me, and it really depends where I'm starting with the story, because I don't have one set formula for when I write. Sometimes a plot idea will come to me. So with New Beginnings at Seaside Blooms, it was the plot about the clairvoyant reading, and I was thinking, okay, what character might that happen to? And again, with The Secret to Happiness, that was a plot idea. Who could be my 3 women in that book? But sometimes I have a job that I want to talk about. So I knew I wanted somebody to run a hedgehog rescue centre. And so that started with the job. I knew I wanted to write a book about a chocolatier for Christmas Wishes at the Chocolate Shop. I knew I wanted to write about somebody who ran a teddy bear shop for All You Need Is Love. So the job can be the starting point. And sometimes I will just start with an idea for a character. And a character might arrive fully formed in my head, or I'll have a vague idea, or I might even have a character name and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what would they do? Where would they live? So it varies massively. And one thing that often does come up, in fact, no, I won't say that, because when we go on to series, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I shall be quiet and keep that bit quiet for a bit.
And are any of your characters inspired by people you know? This is from Kathy and Suzanne.
No, they're all completely fictional. I'm not even aware of being, I do like watching people, but I don't tend to pick up traits of people and think, oh, I noticed how that person did that, so I'll pop that in. Other than one character who's based on me, and again we've got a question about that, so I won't say more about it. They're all completely fictional, completely out of my imagination.
And this is a lovely question from Tara. How do you create such wonderful characters that melt my heart over again?
That's just so lovely. It's trying to tap into the emotion of them. So for me, for making my characters, there are 2 things that I find absolutely essential. One is that they feel real. So I don't write about rich billionaires, and you know, that's not taken away from anybody who does write about them, but they're not people I know, they're not my world, they're a world that some of us want to escape into, but we don't necessarily know these individuals. So I write about me, you, your best friend, your neighbour, your sister, your mum, your grandma, people we recognise and we can relate to. So that's a starting point. And then I really try to tap into the emotion of that character. So in some cases, as I said earlier, I might have been through the experiences, or I talk to people who have been through those experiences or do my research. And I really try to think, what emotions are needed here. And it's something that Nia is really brilliant at bringing out. So occasionally I'll send in a manuscript and she goes, it's not quite as emotional as some of yours. What's her motivation here? What's going on? How does she feel about this? And we really kind of bring that out so that you are completely absorbed into that world. And I think writing perhaps in the first person, although The Secret to Happiness is not in first person because it's about 3 people and that's my only third person book, but I think sometimes that helps draw them in. Having said that, talented writers can write third person just as brilliantly and really bring you into their world. It just depends on how you choose to have your writing style. So yeah, the reality of the characters we know, and really getting their emotion, thinking and taking them on a journey. So we hope that they've learned something by the end of the book and you've gone through that journey with them, the laughs, the downsides as well.
I'm going to ask a few sort of quick fire character questions now, Jessica. These are sort of favourites, not favourites, this sort of thing. So a few quick fire questions. First one is, who's your favourite character and why? This is for Katie and Joanne.
Ruby in Making Wishes at Bayview, she's not the main character, but I just love that character. She came to life immediately on the paper. She makes me laugh. She's got a colourful past, and I just love creating the banter between her and Iris, who she's in Bayview Care Home with. I always cite her as being my absolute favourite all-time character.
She's a brilliant character. I love her. Brilliant question now from Rachel. Of all the gorgeous men from your books, which one would you like to marry?
All of them. Don't tell my husband. I love this question. Really thinking hard about this. It's going to be Barney from Bumblebee Barn. I absolutely love him, and I think Bumblebee Barn is just such a gorgeous setting. So yeah, I'd choose Barney.
No, I'm definitely team Barney. He's great. If you could meet one of your characters in the real world, who would it be? And this is from Sarah.
Well, obviously it's going to be Barney because I'm going to marry him. but also Ruby. So again, both of those. Yeah, either of those. I'd love to meet all of my characters. It would be amazing if ever a book got picked up for big or small screen, and to see what an interpretation of somebody else had of those characters and having an opportunity to actually meet them for real. But yeah, just Barney or Ruby or both.
Yeah. And if you could be any of your characters, who would it be? This is from Cheryl and from Nina.
Probably Autumn Lane in my brand new book, The Start of Something Wonderful, because unlike Autumn Lane, I can draw a little bit, I can copy things, but I have no imagination when it comes to drawing, so I'd love that gift. But she gets to spend time in the Lake District. And it's a place that if you do read the book, I think you'll find that my passion for it, as it does for Whitspur Bay, as it does for the Yorkshire Wolds, just comes across so strongly. It's a part of the world that I love so much. And so the fact that Autumn goes, every time I look at the front cover and she's stood there on that boardwalk with her arms out like this, I can just breathe in, feel the peace, see the fells. Oh gosh, that would be me. In fact, I have done that. I'm going back to the Lake District actually in a few weeks' time, just for a weekend. I think I need to do that pose on the front cover, don't I?
Yeah,
I'll have to write that down, otherwise we'll get home and I'll go, oh, I forgot to do the autumn pose.
Definitely. We're having some great fun in the chat. So Colette's had a great idea, which is Ryan Reynolds to play Barney. I'm here for it. We're going to start a campaign. This is it.
I'm all over that. Yeah. Yeah, particularly thinking about him in The Proposal with Sandra Bullock, because he's so gorgeous in that film. So yeah, I could see that.
And also, Vicky, you've picked out one of my favourite characters. So Vicky says, I love how you always have older characters in your books. They're all so realistic and well developed, and they're some of my favourites. I love learning about Mrs. Sultana's backstory, and she's one of my all-time favourites, Vicky. So a great
Yeah. We love her, and she triggers the debate: do you take sultanas out your scone or do you not? And Claire is shocked by this disgusting behaviour, aren't you?
I was going to say, I just can't even imagine not wanting to have a sultana in many things in life. I just think they add some joy. And when I read it, I was like, excuse me, people do this? And then I found out, I think Jessica, I nearly slipped there, Jessica does this. So just, yeah, count your friends. Yeah. Just
I think you know a person.
Yeah, just exactly. You think you know a person, you think you like a person, then you find out that they destroy. Also, well, I love that this is a bigger conversation than scone or scone.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So let's not start that one. So we'll do sultanas or nil sultanas. But yeah, I was very shocked. So
really fun.
It's a great character.
Another character question from Hazel and Rachel. Which character across all your books do you relate the most to or are most like, and why?
One of the things that I was introducing my main characters, and I like them to be kind. So there are lots of secondary characters who may not be kind, and I've got some real villainous characters in there, but I can relate to them all for that, because generally I am a nice, it sounds awful, I'm a nice person, and I just think it's important to be kind and to be nice to people. Why wouldn't you be? So they've all got a little element of me in from that perspective. But Sarah in Seaside Blooms, because that is a real life situation that I went through, she's the most like me, and she uses quite a few phrases that I do. My little brother had never read contemporary women's fiction before. He's a big thriller reader, and he read it and he was killing himself laughing. He says, such a good book. He says, but I could hear you all the way through it, things that you say, things that you do. And I was like, yeah, that one is a little bit autobiographical to an extent, and it really makes me laugh, because it's there's a few negative reviews for this book where people go, I can't believe, that people wouldn't be like that. They wouldn't be that convinced that they were going to meet this Stephen and that a clairvoyant reading was going to come true, and they wouldn't do that and they wouldn't do the other. It's not real. And I'm going, hello, actually happened, real life. It's the only book of mine that is real life. And I think truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. So yeah, Sarah's most like me.
Lovely question from Vicky here. I wondered which minor character from one of your books surprised you into needing a book about them. Fizz in New Arrivals at Hedgehog Hollow. She appears in the second book in the series. She was only meant to drop off some hoglets. She had one job. Drop off the hoglets, go. But no, she arrived fully formed with her bright pink bunches and a sparkly unicorn t-shirt and a brilliant name, and she was just a character, and she made herself, this is what I mean about the characters talking to you, she made herself a main character. And I said, okay, I'll let you be a main character, that's fine, but you're not having a book. What did she do? She says, not only am I having a book, I'm going to be the series finale. Yeah. So Fizz's story is Christmas Wishes at Hedgehog Hollow. So she absolutely made her presence known, and she muscled in there. But yeah. I love her. She's fabulous. And she's Barney's sister. So she then spawned Barney and Bumblebee Barn as well. So to be a follow-on. Fizz is another of my faves, and I can just see in the chat, I think we've had 6 or 7 people now saying how much they love Fizz and how much love there is for Fizz. So that's really, really lovely. An absolutely brilliant character. So what about if there are any characters in your books who've been on the periphery of a story and you'd like to make them a main character in a future book? This is from Susan. So that happens a lot to me, and this is why I cannot write a standalone book, because every time I start writing a standalone book and I go, this is a standalone, Nia, this is a standalone, I then have some characters who go, actually, we have a really interesting story that I just know you want to be the conduit for. And I go, yeah, you're right. And that's how a series tends to be born with me. And the kind of character that I'm most fascinated in, that I want to explore more of, if you've read Healing Hearts at Bumblebee Barn, Amber, the television producer, her assistant Zara, I really love her, and so there will be a second book. There'll actually be a third book as well, but the second book, Zara will step forward and she will be the main character, or one of the 2 main characters in that, probably out spring next year.
So yeah,
so just moving on to the writing process more generally, and this is a theme we've already picked up on a little bit during this evening session. And how do you keep track of all your characters and their backstories? Do you have a little black book with them all in? This is from Trisha and from Claire.
So I mentioned earlier that I have a spreadsheet. I'm actually not a spreadsheet geek, but my goodness, I have the most enormous spreadsheet for everything. I have tabs for all my names of characters, for pet names, a specific one just for hedgehogs, businesses, places I mentioned. There's about 15 different tabs on this. And so I have loads of detail in there. I have another one that is all my key dates. So every time there's a birthday, a wedding, a birth, an engagement, a business opening, that goes on there. I've got one of common dates, so I know that the Christmas lights switch on in Castle Street is always the first Saturday of December, so that I'm not inconsistent in saying that in each book. But then every book I have has a notebook for it, and I then do a mind map of the character, so I've got kind of what they look like and their personality. So if I'm writing a new book that relates back to something I've already written, I need to go in the garage and dig out the notebook for that and remind myself of that detail. So yeah, copious amounts of information. And I don't know why, but I had the foresight to start that right at the beginning, because there are lots of authors who say, oh, you know, I'm on book 8 and I wished I'd done it. I don't think I could cope going back and trying to backfill it. But yeah, I did that right at the beginning. Super organised.
I feel like this is the sort of thing that people just don't think about being associated with being an author. You know, I think you think about being an author, you write your books and you get published and that's it. And you don't think about all of this, you know, planning and research and sort of, I always think of your little black book as being like a spider web of all your different characters and where they pop up and all their timelines. It's amazing. And I think it's something that people often don't realise that authors have to do to keep track of all of this, all of this detail. What is your favourite part of the writing process, Jessica? This is from Sarah.
I've got a couple of them, and I love the moment when I have an idea which I know is going to have mileage, and I know that there is a story to be told there and it's an exciting one, and I get a little thrill out of that. And then my other part is that I know that they can be really painful, but actually I love edits, because what the editing process does is takes a book that's hopefully good and polishes and sparkles it into a book that hopefully the readers will think is great. And, you know, massive thank you and credit to Nia as my editor, because she can take that step back, which I can't because I'm too close to my work, and she'll go, not sure about this bit, I think we need this bit adding in, we need a bit more here, timeline's not quite right. And we've had some humdingers of big edits, haven't we, where that does shift the timeline a little bit, but it's massively changed the story. But we get through them, and if I'm having a moment where I have a panic, Nia's just on the end of the phone, and we work brilliantly in a partnership on that. And I really like that part, that being able to take something and just make it that bit better than I can on my own. So huge team go into getting the books out to you as well. So many people are involved in the process.
And I think you're brilliant because you're so open-minded and collaborative in that process, and I think that makes a huge difference, because sometimes we won't always agree on everything, but we always find a way through, which I think is really important. It's a tough part of the process, but I think it's a really good one as well.
You can't be massively precious about it, and you can't say no, I'm not doing that, absolutely not, it's my words, it's my story, because this is adding value to it. And there have been a couple of things where we've talked through, haven't we, and just said, actually I'm happy to change that, but I'd quite like to keep this part, and but perhaps I need to present it differently, and we find a way through.
Question from Kirsty: what's your favourite and least favourite parts about being an author?
My favourite is getting to do something every day that I love. What a gift that is. They say, if you find something you love, you never have to work a day in your life. Actually, you do. It's very hard work. But I love what I do, and I pick it as a job. I pick it as a hobby. Consequently, my bum is glued to the seat in my office. But another part of that is that, you're doing something that can make a difference to people. When I get messages saying, I read your book and it got me through a difficult time, or I resonated with the story and it's made me feel I'm normal in how I'm feeling about things, that I'm not alone with this. You've actually helped me find a way through it, or just I got some escapism. You know, that is something I never considered in being an author. What a privilege to be able to touch people's lives like that. So absolute favourite part is that. Worst, the criticism. I'm so blessed that I have some incredibly lovely reviews, huge number of 4 and 5-star reviews, and I'm so grateful, and I do read them all. But even with the amount of reviews I've got, a nasty 1-star review can still floor me. It really can. I absolutely am all about constructive criticism. If you've got a criticism about it and you give it 1 star, great. But when you actually are very personal about the author, and so I have one, in Hedgehog Hollow series, Samantha's mum, Debs, is not very nice. And I have somebody who gave me a 1-star review for having a nasty character and claimed that I must have a very difficult relationship with my mum. Well, why would you jump to that conclusion? My mum's my best friend. She's amazing. She's my biggest fan, champion. It's fiction. And so I find reviews like that extremely hurtful, because it's like you're making an assumption about me and you don't know me or anything about my life. I've written a piece of fiction. You don't like it, you don't have to read it. So that's hard. And also I have, I'm terrible at irony. I have a negative voice in my head that tells me I'm not good enough and it'll all fall apart. I suffer really quite badly from imposter syndrome. And I just have moments where I have a little bit of a meltdown and can't quite believe that I've had success, and I trip over myself in my kind of second guessing. And so my own imposter syndrome voice needs a good slapping back into place from time to time. But most of the time I keep control of it. But yeah, I do. I'm a bad critic for myself. I push myself way too hard, and I always think I'm going to let people down, and I don't want to do that. So that's the tricky part. We overthink, we catastrophize as authors. It's part of it. You're like, and your mind goes off on this complete event when it really didn't need to be an event.
Yeah. I think my saddest moments as your editor is when you have those wobbles and that imposter syndrome, because it just makes me so sad, because you're such an amazing writer and have had so much success. So and Colette is just saying you could never let any of us down, Jessica, which is so true. So yeah, that is
thank you.
Absolutely true. And Jill says, never doubt yourself. You are amazing, which I think is so
thank you. It's lovely having actually, such gorgeous readers, and I have my reading group called Redland's Readers. If anybody's not in it, you're very, very welcome to join. We've got nearly 1,500 members, which astonishes me. And it's just such a warm, friendly space where we just talk about Whitsborough Bay, hedgehogs. So if it's not a reading book club, it is for people who've read my books, and I give little insights and early cover reveals and different things like that. And it touches me so much when I see comments in there. Really, really, if I've read a bad review, I just need to nip onto Redland's Readers, and it grounds me and makes me think, phew, it's okay. It's just that one person probably having a very bad day, and feel sorry for them, really, that they feel better by writing that venom. No need. But it makes some people feel better.
Vicky puts it very well. She says, don't listen to the negative Nellies. You and your books are amazing, which I love. So yeah, I agree with that. Next question is more about your sort of writing habits. From Fiona, what is a typical writing day like?
Extremely long. I'm terrible for not having a work-life balance, because again, you do a job you love. It's also what you choose as a hobby. It's hard to limit the hours. So I tend to be down in my office about 8:30, 9 o'clock working, and I can still be here 12, 13 hours later working, having eaten a sandwich at my desk. I'm so naughty. And I'm trying to get a lot better at getting out and about and getting some fresh air. It's a standing joke. My daughter stalks me on, we've got one of those apps where you can see where your family members are. And if mummy has left the house, how's mummy left the house? She never leaves the house. And so yeah, I need to get out and about a bit more. So very long, and social media can be such a distraction. But yeah, so I need to stay off, shut down social media, crack on with my writing. And when I do get into a book, I can write anywhere between, well, it can be 500 to 2,000 words a day in the early stages where it's a little bit slow and I'm finding my way. But then a typical writing day, I might do 5, 6, 7, 8,000 words. I think a huge one I did would have been my Cat Cafe book. I did 55,000 words in the space of a week because I kind of didn't have very long to write it, and it just, so that was quite a long time wedged on my seat.
When you told me that you'd written 55,000 words in a week, I nearly fell off my chair. I couldn't believe it. No, absolutely incredible. A question from Sarah, and I'm sure there are many people on the call this evening who are aspiring writers. What is the best advice you could give to someone wanting to write a book?
Absolutely do it. Don't just think about it, make it happen. Only you can make that happen, that writing that book. There will always be excuses not to, and the biggest one of those will be time. You can find time. I don't know a single author, a single published author who had time to write. We found it because we had a story or stories burned inside us that we just had to get out there. So I stopped watching soaps. I wrote on the commute. That would be by train, not by car, because that would have been very dangerous. Just found time. I started writing when my daughter was a baby, and so when she was in bed, I would write, and you'd be amazed when you've only got like an hour, half an hour here or there, how much you can actually get on with, because you won't let social media distract you. You were just there. Very good friend of mine, and another Boleswood author, Jo Bartlett, her son plays a lot of rugby, and she used to sit and I say used to because he's about finished his time with rugby now, but she used to sit in the car park on cold days with a laptop resting on the steering wheel, and she would write while he was playing a rugby match. So, again, on the school run, there will be times that you can find. So absolutely do it. And, learn your craft. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. But it's easy to find excuses not to.
This is a very, very hard question. Which is your favourite of all your books? And I'm also going to ask which has been your favourite to write as well, and why? And these questions come from Jocelyn, Jill, Katie, Fiona, and Lucy. Oh gosh, favourite of books when you've got 19 out there. It's like picking your favourite child, or seeing as I've only got one child, that actually isn't a difficult question. It'd be like asking me to pick my favourite teddy bear. That would be very hard. And I love different books for different reasons. So Seaside Blooms will always be a very special book because it's my debut, and that will always be an important book for me. Secret to Happiness will always be a really special book because it's the one that secured me a publishing deal. And I could kind of go on and name a different reason why I love each of them. Story-wise, All You Need Is Love is one of my personal favourites. Starfish Cafe, Snowflakes Over Starfish Cafe, again, another personal favourite. I just love the emotion of that story. But my new one coming out is also a big personal favourite because it's been a couple of years that I've been wanting to write a story set in the lakes. But I couldn't single one out. There's different reasons why I like different ones. Time has completely flown, and we've just got a few minutes left. So I've got one more question, which will then lead into our exclusive reveal for everyone on the call. So the question is from Linda and from Vicky. Will you continue within the series you've already written? When will you be going back to Castle Street?
I am going back to Castle Street very soon. In fact, I have written my next story set on Castle Street. It is called Christmas at the Cat Cafe. Guess where it's set? A cat cafe on Castle Street. So going back there. So even though I'm starting a brand new series in the lakes, it is not goodbye to Whitsunther Bay at all. I've got plenty more businesses that I want to talk about on Castle Street. I've got plenty more Whitsunther Bay stories. I've got stories set in the Yorkshire Wolds, Bumblebee Barn, Hedgehog Hollow world. The Hedgehog Hollow series is finished, but those who love Hedgehog Hollow, it continues life through the Bumblebee Barn books. We will be returning on I'm going to blank on the next 17th of September. Have I got that date right?
I think it is 17th, yeah. And do you want to share with your fans, Jessica, a bit about the Cat Cafe?
Yes, so it's called Christmas at the Cat Cafe, and it is about a main character called Tabby, who has been absolutely in love with cats ever since she was a young child, and she found an abandoned box of kittens on her way to the playground, took them home and ended up keeping them, and she's a chef, and her dream is to have a business that involves cats, and comes up with combining her love of baking with her love of cats by opening Castle Street Cat Cafe. She was going to be opening it with her long-term boyfriend Leon, but quite early in the book, Leon drops a little bit of a bombshell that it's maybe not quite his dream, but I won't say any more than that because I've not actually seen, we haven't finalised the blurb, so I'm not sure what we're giving away and what we're not giving away in the blurb just yet. But it's a lovely story of cats, and even if you don't like cats, it's still a lovely story. There's plenty about the human element in there. And even if you don't like cats, I'm sure you will by the end of it. Claire will be looking absolutely incredulous at the idea that anybody could not like cats, because she is a huge fan of felines. And we haven't seen Sybil or Freya in the background, have we, at all during this? But
they've been quite well behaved for once, so everyone will be very glad that they haven't accidentally ended the event at all.
Well, that's because Freya was up to mischief and nicked the ham and the cheese before the event actually started. And this time actually there's a special thing, because I did have two rescue cats. Unfortunately, they crossed the Rainbow Bridge a few years back, Felix and Pixie. I've already used Felix and Pixie in the Starfish Cafe book, so I couldn't immortalise them in this series. And I thought, well, I could make up a load of cat names, but actually knowing that the Boldwood family are big animal fans, and that there are quite a lot of the Boldwood team who do have cats, I went and asked Team Boldwood. So we have a little cast of cat characters at the beginning, and they are all either owned by or have been owned by Boldwood staff, or kind of often looked after for friends or family by Boldwood staff, with just a few exceptions of some fictional ones that I threw into the mix. So we have the Boldwood cat family in there, which was lovely.
Really exciting. And we're really thrilled to be able to share with you all exclusively this evening the cover for Christmas at the Cat Cafe. I don't know if you want to do a drum roll, Jessica. There we go. So everyone, hope you love it as much as we do. Ta-da! I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
There's cats on the front, it's so gorgeous.
Beautiful cats. I hope you all love it as much as we do. This is a real sneak peek. This isn't on Amazon or anywhere yet. Literally was finalised this morning. I can see lots of people leaving us gorgeous comments saying how much everyone loves it and how beautiful it is. So yes, and well spotted, Heather, the 1 million copy bestseller right there at the top to make it very clear. No, it's absolutely fantastic. So many comments coming in. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Oh, someone there said one looks like my cat. So
oh, brilliant. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, no, we're really thrilled with it. So this will be shared again in the newsletter in due course, and we'll go up on Amazon in due course. But this is the next release. That's it.
Thank you, Nia. I've been so blessed with such gorgeous covers, and every time they come through, I'm like, oh, love that, so gorgeous. So that's the same. Got a different cover designer for the start of Something Wonderful, but that's the same cover designer who's done my other Castle Street books, worked on that one. So love it.
So I can't believe it. We're past 7:30. It's been an amazing hour and a half, but time was completely flown. But I just wanted to say, thank you so much to everyone who joined us. We wouldn't be here without the brilliant readers who read Jessica's books. So thank you so much for that. I still can't believe we've hit 1 million books sold. It's been 4 amazing years working together with Jessica, and I'm just so thrilled and so privileged to be able to do that. Jessica, any final words from you before we sign off for the evening?
Yeah, it was funny because I was just looking at my calendar earlier, and I realised that yesterday was actually the 4-year anniversary of Boldwood making the announcement of their first 20 authors, and at that point I was like really nervous, and part of this group of amazing authors. Would my book sell? And oh my goodness, they have done. And as Nia says, it's thanks to all of you putting your trust in, and the beautiful reviews, the recommendations to friends and family. Recommendations are just, if you could weigh them, they would be absolutely worth their weight in gold and so much more, because people you trust are saying to you, I've loved this book, read it. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate everyone coming. we had loads more questions and there was no way we were going to get through them all, but what we're going to be doing is there will be a newsletter and follow-up, and I will actually write out some answers for those that we haven't covered. So if you did raise a question, it's not been ignored. It will absolutely have an answer coming to you soon. So thank you for being here, and thank you for buying, listening, downloading, borrowing my books.
And I see everyone. There we go. Nice to see everyone. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Just looking down all the comments as everybody's saying goodbye.